So without any further ado, please give it up and give a warm welcome to the one and only Mr. Neil Merton!
Well, after all that, I hope this is going to be worth it. Anyhow, I'm here to talk about how you can change the world and how Robot 5 Reaper Tyrannosaurs can help you do it. A bit about me to begin with, since this is obligatory. I'm Neil Merton. I still call myself a copywriter, but that's not really what I do anymore. These days, I'm chief propagandist for Convertri. Convertri is an app that's designed to build sales funnels. And I was once told by someone far smarter than me that when you make a product, you should be able to sum it up in 3 points. And because I like words, I made all of them literate. So, we are fast. We're built from the ground up to deliver the fastest pages you've ever seen. Those you can build even huge pages in Convertri, they will load in less than 3 seconds. And because the faster your page is, the better your conversions are. We are flexible. Our editor it's not the kind of blocky thing you might have seen before with like 2 pages and ClickFunnels. Like with us, you can just hit that down and put it anywhere you want. It means, that kind of thing means we're really popular with like people who are building pages for clients and designers, because anything a client wants, you can make it. Does anyone want to take a guess at what the third one is?
Free!
Good try. No.
Funnels?
Funnels is good. I'm actually kind of regretting what I put on the card because you're in the room.
His mum says worse.
No, of course not.
So, yes, we are fast, flexible, fucking awesome. That sums up us and what we want from a Tinder date. And the cool part is, it's not just us who are saying this. But that's not really what I'm here to talk about at the moment. We are going to talk about Convertri a bit, because I'm going to give you some examples of stuff that I've done, or stuff we've done while we're there. But what Simon actually wanted me to talk about was emails. And that was how this started. But I found it really hard to talk about the way we do emails without talking about the way we do everything else. And how it all boils down to one thing, which is basically changing the world. So we are going to talk about that. On the way, we are going to talk about diamonds, we're going to talk about wine, we're going to talk about wine, and we are going to talk about the greatest sales letter that has ever been written. Despite what I've put on the slide, it's not that one. Before I do that, we are going to talk about this. You see that all right? Has anyone seen that before? I'll take that as a no. So, yeah, that's the Stillhouse projection. It's a map of the world which focuses on the oceans rather than the land. It puts them all into one coherent unit. It was designed by a guy with the wonderful name of Dr. Athelstan Stillhouse, and it was developed in World War II as part of a project to help better detect German U-boats. That map literally killed Nazis. And what I like about it is not just that it makes my changing the world line really very literal. It's that it shows how changing the context of something, or changing the context of something very familiar, can make it look very different. And that is what I want to talk about, context, which, as this image shows, can be quite important. Because the context we bring to things shapes how we see them. Yeah, I see that slowly filtering out. It shapes how we see them, it shapes how we react to them. Like everything that's in your world affects how you react to everything else. And the reason I started out like writing something about email marketing and ends up here is because, to be honest, I mean, the marketing emails we send, like the mails we send to sell affiliate products, I don't really think they're that special. We've got a small marketing list. Oh, don't look like that.
All right.
I'm
writing that down.
We've got a small marketing list. It's about 3,000 people. It's everyone who's bought Convertri through JVZoo. We don't include our full price buyers, and because of that, most of the leads on there, they're like 2.5 years old. And despite that, we do get reasonable results given the size of it. You're not going to see us at the top of many leaderboards, but like positions 3 through 6, like they happen fairly frequently. And the reason we do that with a small list is that when we do mail, people pay attention. Now, the average open rate for a list like ours, like a marketing list in the JVZoo space, not being refreshed very much, is it's about 5%. Quick word on that figure. It's bollocks. Because it's basically, I got that number through I asked a load of people, the ones who responded to me, like there was about 10, 15 of them, I averaged it out, like what they said their open rates was, 5.3%. So I don't actually know if that's the kind of thing like you get, but that seems a reasonable average based on them. And like the amount of times I see people put something on Facebook where they're showing like a 12% open rate on the emails, and you get a load of comments below going, "Oh my god, bro, that's awesome." Like that kind of bears out, but that's maybe not unreasonable. Like maybe not accurate, but probably not unreasonable. The open rates we get are more like that. So 20 to 30% plus. Sometimes more. And this is done. It's done without all the usual stuff that gets thrown around when like people are talking about how to increase open rates. So that list has never been cleaned. Not once. I don't spend ages crafting subject lines. Like ours are standard, they're fairly templated. I have never once sent a piece of valuable content. I have never once given even the smallest fuck about spam filters. Like, I know for a fact some of our emails go into spam. I don't care because our users dig them out again. And I'm not saying these are like bad or pointless things to do. They're not. Like if we could do them, our open rates would be better. Like we get a bit more money from each mail, but given the size of the list, like the leverage just isn't there. Affiliate marketing is a very small part of our model. The guy who writes most of our marketing emails these days is under strict instructions to spend if you're spending more than 15 minutes writing one, you're taking too long. So, to show what we do to try and get decent rates, that's a standard inbox. In fact, it's my inbox. What bit of that do you think, like if that was yours, what bit would have the most effect on which of those emails you open?
Who it comes from?
Who it comes from?
There you are. That bit, the from line. Like our subscribers don't open our marketing mails because we provide amazing content. They don't open them because we write amazing subject lines or give them a load of free stuff. They open our mails because those mails are from Convertri. And that happens because we've built the right context around Convertri to make that happen. Like we don't change the message, we change how they see the company that sends them. And this works because the context people bring with them, like when they see your emails and your products, it is really powerful. Like every one of these impressions they have about you, both good and bad, is going to affect how they react to seeing something from you. Like it's going to affect whether they open the email to begin with, whether they click the link, and that means changing it, like changing the impressions they have of you. That is going to have a massive effect both on how your emails and your product or products get perceived. Like when you change that, you do change the world, at least for them. A few examples to show that this can work. A fairly well-known one is diamonds. Like this is the reason diamonds are expensive, because most people who haven't heard this before think that diamonds are expensive because they're rare. They're not. Like you can pull them out of South Africa by the truckload. They used to be expensive because a company called De Beers controlled about 85% of the market, and they did two very smart things. The first was, while they had that many diamonds, they strangled the supply. So they only released them very gradually. And while they were doing that, they ran a marketing campaign that made diamonds basically the only acceptable stone to put in a wedding or engagement band. It's basically believed that advertising campaigns like this are the reason that we give engagement rings to begin with. And this campaign it's been running a very long time, and it's pulled steadily fewer punches as time goes on. We've passed through flattery. Now, after that, we moved on to negging. Flirted briefly with social anxiety, and finally settled on prostitution. Now, the effect of doing this was in a world. this was in full swing in like the 30s to 50s, a world where marriage was basically mandatory. Like, this kind of campaign meant both your social status and your sex life from the age of about 21 until the end of forever. They depended on getting the right rock. As we all know, people pay more for things they value. Turns out people value those things quite a lot. You know, De Beers changed how we saw diamonds by changing the context in which they were seen. You know, they stopped being just another rock and started being the thing that will ruin your life if you fuck up. But I don't think that's actually the interesting bit. The interesting bit is the lasting effects of the campaign, because these days, De Beers don't have that kind of monopoly. They're still a big company, but they don't control that much of the diamond supply. And not getting married, like, it's not going to make you a social pariah in the way that it used to. Even if you do get married, like, rings come in a lot of different flavours. Diamonds aren't really considered better or worse, particularly than any other rock. But despite this, diamonds are still very expensive, and the reason is now we expect diamonds to be expensive. Like, that is the context we now have for them. If someone tries to sell you a cheap jewellery grade diamond, you're going to think you're being conned. So, De Beers did this with, like, it was a well-targeted marketing campaign, and obviously the fact they could control the supply helps, but you don't need that to do something like this, because the human brain is quite messed up, like, enough that it'll do it to itself. Has anyone here ever done a wine tasting? Are we wine people?
Yes.
Yes, wine people. Dennis is a wine person. Anyone else? Elson? Okay, so if you bought 2 bottles, like one bottle's like 10 quid, you got it from a supermarket. One bottle you decide to treat yourself, like 50 quid from wherever you get expensive wine from. I'm not a wine person. Like, which one would you expect to, like, taste better? But this isn't
The
a trick
expensive
question.
one, obviously.
Yeah, it is. Like, that's a good guess. It is entirely accurate. Like, things that cost more do tend to be better. That's the whole point of them costing more. And we thought that was how it worked, but then a guy came along called Frederick Boucher. And Fred ran another wine tasting experiment. He organised a sample of France's best wine testers, like people who did this professionally. Like, not just like wine buffs, but people who actually did this kind of thing for a living. And he gave them, like, one bottle of very expensive Grand Cru wine. He gave them one bottle of supermarket Blanc, basically. And, like, he asked them to rate them. Like, here are the glasses, what do you think? And the testers saw the Grand Cru wine, that was excellent, that was amazing. Like, they thought it was complex, they thought it was balanced, they thought it was long and woody, it was quite literally wine porn. The supermarket Blanc, they thought it was weak, it was light, it was flat. Now, a smaller man, like a weaker man, a man less thoroughly dedicated to embarrassing the French, he might have just, like, switched the labels on the bottles and given them an out. Like, said, well, it was clearly a shitty posh bottle and a really good cheap one. He didn't do that. He took exactly the same wine and put it in the two different bottles. And what he showed with this was that even to professional wine tasters, like, what mattered wasn't the wine itself, it was the context. You know, wine is not expensive because it tastes good. It tastes good because it's expensive. So what happened in both these cases was that basically the product itself didn't change, the context for it did. In one case, our context for diamonds has become, like, expensive, so we don't think about, like, short supply chains, we don't think about high profit margins, we don't think about, like, anything like that we might think about when we're bitching about the price of something else. We expect diamonds to be expensive, therefore we pay through the nose for them. Our context for wine is that the high price stuff is tastier, the low price stuff isn't. And because taste is an entirely subjective thing, when we buy a high price bottle, our brains make that true. You know, as we've seen, it doesn't even have to actually be a high price bottle of wine, you just have to think it is. So if you want to take a life hack from this, then, like, next time you go around to someone's house and you brought a bottle of wine over, tell them it costs, like, about 3 times more than it actually did. Like, you won't be fooling them into thinking it tastes better. Like, it will actually taste better. I mean, only to them, you'll still get the shitty version. Of course, other things can also form part of the context that your brain is using to decide how wine tastes. So there we go. So if a friend tells you it's really good, like that is going to get added to your context. You're more likely to think it tastes good. Like if it comes from the same vineyard, like then again that becomes part of your context. You expect it to taste better. And this does work in reverse as well. I mean, is there anyone in the room who's like, no, I just don't get wine. It all tastes the same to me. Right,
Yeah.
and it does, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Sometimes it's sweet.
because that's your context for
Yeah.
it. You know. So changing the context, how people see something like wine, that's pretty easy because we have context we can build on. Like we already think expensive wine is good, so we make our wine look expensive, like it will taste good. What I want to go into with this next example is how you can build that context up from nothing. Or at least build up from not very much. Context is never entirely empty. As an example, when we started Convertri, like it was an entirely new product. Like people, we didn't have any kind of brand, but some people already knew me, and their experience with me, like will affect how they perceived our product and whether they were likely to buy. Same is true of Andy Fletcher, my business partner. And everyone who saw it saw that we were using JVZoo to sell it, therefore we were a JVZoo product. Like people brought all these biases with them when they first used Convertri. And it turned out that was actually pretty useful for us. I will get to why a bit later. But first, I do want to talk about the greatest sales letter of all time. Now this is something that sold hundreds of millions of dollars of product, like just by changing the context. Ish. And I want to talk about this before I go into how I tried to do a similar thing with Convertri. Because whenever I try to sell something, like the first thing I think about is what's worked on me in the past. Like, and this was my inspiration. But not necessarily like the words or the pitch, but the effect it created. Like that is the effect I want to create, possibly by doing something entirely different. And nothing has ever sold me more effectively than this letter. I was regularly giving up large parts of my income just so I could buy what this was telling me I wanted to buy. I'm referring, of course, to Transformers the movie. How many people here are about my age? I'm 35. Who's like 5 years above or below? Yeah, so 30 to 40? Yeah? You know that film? You seen it?
Familiar.
Yeah?
Long time.
Yeah, tell me about it. Right? So this is a masterpiece of modern cinema. No. I'm not being ironic. This is the greatest film ever made. I will fucking fight you. This came out in like 1986. Okay, I was only 3 at the time. I was far too young to see it in the cinema. But my cousin got the video when I was about 8, and then him, myself, and my brother, we basically spent the next year with it on repeat. And when this film came out, like the critics weren't overly impressed. They said it was full of flash action, but it didn't have any wit, it didn't have any smart scripting, there wasn't anything in there for adults. Like they said it was basically an 18-minute toy advert. And I mean, the only real answer to these objections is like, well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. This was an advert. It was designed to sell. And what's one thing we all know about sales letters? You write to one person. And that person was not a film critic, that person was not a parent, that person was the 8-year-old me. The person was the 8-year-old me, and this film had a robot fire-breathing tyrannosaur. And like, if that's not what you want from your sales letters, I can't help you. And so yeah, people called it the most expensive toy advertisement ever, as if that was an insult. But yes, it was an advert. Like the backers of this were a company called Hasbro, and they marketed the Transformers toys. Hasbro didn't care what films you saw, they just wanted you to buy their stuff. Their stuff, in this case, being, as noted, giant robot fire-breathing tyrannosaur. So it didn't pretend to be anything other than that, but it was an advert with ambition. So it had apocalyptic scope, like worlds were getting destroyed. It had huge, high-energy battle scenes. It had a willingness in a kid's cartoon to just wipe out the main cast like they were extras in Godfather. And coming back a little bit to what I've been saying about perspective and context, if you do that in a cartoon with robots, you get mocked by critics. If you do it with dragons and Amelia Clark, 38 Emmys. Like, just saying. But to understand how this was selling me and how we can apply it to our own stuff, we need to dive a bit into the background of what made Transformers such a successful toy to begin with. because Hasbro didn't make the Transformers themselves. You know, they were a collection of toy lines from Japan. They weren't even all made by the same company. You know, in Japan, transforming robots toys, they were just a thing. Like non-transforming toy cars were a thing over here in the 70s and 80s. Lots of companies were making them. So Hasbro licensed them and they imported them, but they didn't just sell them as is. They took these disparate series of toys and they didn't really have anything to do with each other. And they said, these ones are the Autobots and they're the good guys, and these ones are the Decepticons and they're the bad guys. And they all came from Cybertron, and now they're fighting the war on Earth. Like, they took these blank slates and they gave them characters. You know, this guy here, in Japan he was Truckbot. Like, Hasbro called him Optimus Prime, and they made him like good and fatherly and brave. And this guy here was like Jetfighter. But Hasbro called him Starscream, they made him a backstabbing bastard. And the way they showed these characters to us was they made the cartoons that got shown on Saturday mornings. And so, as well as Optimus Prime, we had quite a big range of characters. We had Megatron, evil leader of the Decepticons, you can tell by the smile. We had Prowl. I had a Prowl toy, I quite like that one. He turned into a police car, he was steady, he was dependable. Grimlock, like, as noted, giant robot fire-breathing dinosaur, therefore the coolest thing in any 8-year-old's life. And despite it being 30 years later, I didn't have to look that up. I didn't need a refresher. I still remember this. You know, do you still remember that? Like those?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I had a load of kids just like me. We watched these cartoons, we watched the Autobots, we watched the Decepticons, we saw the games, we decked out with them. Like this guy here, he stopped being a transforming jet and he started being a character, and that was what we bought into. You know, and then like we either saved up and we bought the toys ourselves, or we hounded our parents until they bought them. And so Hasbro, they were doing well with this for a good few years, but then they ran into a problem because they just got the licensing rights to a whole new set of toys. And so a whole new stuff for selling to people like me. But animation is expensive, and this wasn't a cheap thing to do. You can only afford to animate so many characters, and you can only get so many into the stories you're telling if you want this kind of thing to work. And this means if you're bringing new characters in, well, the old ones have got to go. And you could swap them out like gradually over the course of a series. That's going to take a while. As I think, like we're all in business, we all know that money now is far better than money in the future. So instead, Hasbro made the movie, and the stated point of which in their boardroom was the brutal murder of large parts of my toy collection. There was Prowl. I say, I had Prowl. I like Prowl. First 5 minutes of the film, he gets shot in the chest, watch him burn up from the inside out. Ironhide. I didn't have an Ironhide toy. I quite wanted one. A couple minutes later, he got blasted in the head while he pled for mercy. Shrapnel got his head crushed. Most famously of all, Optimus Prime, and it may be difficult to imagine if you weren't actually part of that generation, but this is a character a lot of kids genuinely looked up to as a father figure. And here he is in what's actually a fairly epic deathbed scene. I had kids leaving the cinema in tears. I was never really bothered by that. Because my favourite Transformer was Starscream. The scene that shaped my childhood happened a few minutes later, and it just wasn't pretty. But relief came fast, because it just so happened this movie also introduced a whole load of new characters who, coincidentally, we can now buy. And it worked. It really worked. I didn't stop wanting the old toys, but I sure as hell wanted them too. You know, I didn't much like the fact that Starscream had been killed, but after I watched the movie, I really wanted the toy of the robot that killed him. Now, the point with all this isn't just to talk about Transformers and how to reinvigorate your product line through emotional trauma, though I do quite enjoy doing that. The point is to illustrate how Hasbro sold millions of dollars of their toy. You know, they didn't change the product itself because they couldn't. Like, the toy itself was a licensed model. What they created was the context, like the story, the mythology around them, and that is what we bought into. You know, the toy at this point was basically irrelevant. Like, we saw the characters, we saw the stories, and we wanted them. Yeah, and this shouldn't really be a huge surprise, because this is basically what marketing is. You know, especially if you're a copywriter like I was and like selling someone else's thing, the whole point of your sales letter is to like add enough context to the thing you're trying to sell that your prospect is going to want it. You know, telling them about the problem, like showing them other people think it's good. All this stuff is designed to change someone's perception. But there's two follow-on things from this that a lot of businesses don't seem to realise, and I think they can make a lot more money if they do. The first one is you don't need to do all this stuff in your sales letter. Like Transformers the movie may well have been the most expensive toy ad ever, but it didn't have a pitch in it. It just put all this stuff into my head, so that when I saw the thing there to buy, I was like, no, that one. Like, well, I didn't need a pitch, because all that was there already. And the second thing is that context does not just apply to your product, it applies to you. You know, it applies to your company, it applies to every interaction people have with you. That means that when you send emails, the context you build around yourself, that's going to affect how many people open them. Like when they send you a support request, it's going to affect how patient they're going to be. When they're coming up to a renewal date, like this affects how likely they are to cancel. Like when they're using your product, like all this stuff they know about you, all this stuff they have in their head already, that is going to affect how good they think it is. So I started this by talking about email open rates because that was what this talk was originally meant to be about. Transformers are just more fun. But like let's say affiliate sales are a tiny part of our revenue. The original idea wasn't to make people pay more attention to our marketing messages. That's just a side effect. The original idea was to help retention. Convertri is a subscription product, and I did this to keep cancellations as low as possible. And that is also working. Let's say our original sales were a JVZoo launch, and most launch subscriptions don't hang on that well. Like people sign up because they're getting a great deal, the urgency is high, but then they realise they're never going to use it, they want to buy the next shiny thing. And that means that first month drop-offs for something like a JVZoo launch, like something like a recurring upsell, it's often in the region of 25 to 30%, thereabouts. Our first month drop-off was 10%. For our full price customers, the only place we have significant drop-off at the moment is between the free trial and that first month's payment. Like once people are in, they tend to stay. And they stay because we're a company that they want to stay with. You know, the software is pretty good. I'm contractually obliged to say that, but I do genuinely believe it. But it doesn't do everything people want it to do. You know, we've got a feature request list that stretches roughly from here to Toronto. We're not perfect, we do dick up. But we've created a context around that which keeps our customers loyal. You know, we've had some people tell us that that we bought this offer like through another affiliate's link because we wanted the bonus, but we've come and bought it through you as well because we want you to get the commission. We want to support you. So to close this out, I'm going to run through quickly basically what we've done to shape how our customers see us, how I've tried to do something like that in Convertri. This is obviously going to be fairly specific to our situation, but if you've got a software as a service yourself, then you can probably, to be honest, you can probably do much like what we're doing here. If you're doing something else, then like with any luck, there will be some ideas you can steal. So, I mean, the first step with any of this is understanding where you're starting from, and the overriding context that most of our first customers brought with them can be summed up by JVZoo. And this means like different things to different people, but when it's going to become a problem for you, it boils down to basically two things. You know, they think the product is likely to be abandoned inside 6 months, and they're going to get a bombardment of affiliate mails. And this isn't what I'd call a fair perception. Like, this is not true of every product on Zoo. It's not even necessarily true of most of them. But it's true of enough of them that quite a lot of people do bring that with them. You know, you can definitely say that perception isn't fair, it's not JVZoo's fault. All these things are true. But saying that isn't there is just kidding yourself. But that's okay, because if we know where we start, we know how to subvert it. So the first email people get from us, we address one of these things. So, like, are we going to send you affiliate mails? Yes, we are. But we're not going to force you into it. You know, if all you want is product updates, you can get those. They're on a separate list. So, you know, unsubscribe from this one, you will still get them, no harm, no foul. And the amount of bitching that we used to get, I imagine quite a lot of you also get, you know, from people who think they just shouldn't get affiliate mails. Like, you would think, if, like, doing something like that, you'd think we would get a ton of unsubscribes. But no, we barely saw any. What we did get was a load of emails thanking us like for having some respect for their inbox, like and actually giving them the option of being sold to, rather than making them feel they were forced into it. We also don't hide the fact that the emails are selling stuff. Our updates come from what we call Convertory Happiness Department. It's a bit of a cutesy name, I kind of regret that a bit now, but it's what we've got. Our marketing messages come from the Convertory Propaganda Department. So as soon as someone sees like that in the front line, they know it's going to be an ad. It's not going to be content. It's not going to be a critical update. It's going to be an ad. It's going to try and sell you a thing. Despite that, like 20+% open rates. So what this adds to our context is that we're open about what we're doing. You know, we're honest, we're transparent, and that means we can be trusted. The other side of our email game is those happiness department emails. You can read that. They go out every Tuesday, every week, and they tell all our users about the updates that we've made to the app in that last week. And there are always updates every time. You know, we were going to be doing like regular updates anyway, because Convertory is a big product. You know, we had a ton of things we wanted to add, and putting them out regularly is just a good way to run a dev team. You know, without some kind of firm deadline, getting devs to ship stuff is what's known in coding circles as a motherfucker. And I wanted to make sure we were like in front of people regularly. You know, that they knew on this day, at this time, they would get an email from us. They were going to find us in their inbox. It's much like what Dean was saying earlier about like be there, like be in front of them. So we turn these updates into a regular circular. So like every week our users are told how the thing they bought has become better. Like what this adds to our context is that we're working for them. You know, our affiliate mails don't just say we're putting the commissions into making conversion better, they can actually see it happen. And they see it happen on Update Tuesday. This isn't a thing I named, it's something our users named, it just got picked up. Like this is now a thing our users expect, like they are looking for it. And these with these updates, they are very carefully not done in court speak. Like I said, our marketing emails aren't anything particularly special. These ones are like a bit different. I used to write these. I don't anymore. They are done by Beth, who is sitting over there. And because they're written by Beth, they involve Jurassic Park references. We've had Simpsons memes. There is a truly vast collection of dive puns. Anyone who does D&D will know a dive pun is like a normal pun. It's bigger. It's got bigger teeth. And
Go with the next one.
yeah. And Beth has a metric fuck ton of them, which all find their way in there. And what this says is that we're real people. You know, we're not a faceless corporate block. We've got names, we've got personalities, you can relate to us. This is reinforced by the Facebook group we've got. This is where people can interact with us as individuals. I'm in there pretty much every day. Andy's in there pretty much every day. Beth's in there a lot as well. We answer questions, we deal with problems. We mock each other quite a lot. That's the thing. Sometimes we even mock our users because we're British and that seems to be how it works. Like we don't treat them like customers, we treat them like people. Because when you do that, you get treated like a person back. Like it bonds you as part of the group. This group isn't moderated, by the way. If you want to go in there and post an ad for your own thing or whatever, you can do it. We'll delete it, but you can do it until it's got it. Someone posts a criticism of us, we don't delete the thread, we answer it. You know, we allow discussions of what we're not doing well. Because we allow them, first of all, we know how to do things better, and it also means they outweighed considerably by the discussions of the things we are. And yeah, it's also built up a community where quite a lot of the time, if someone posts up an issue, the customers come along and fix it before we can, which I think is a pretty neat thing. The other thing we do, again, usually in the Facebook group, sometimes with emails as well, is we make sure we own our fuck-ups. You know, people don't care when you get things wrong, as long as you basically hold your hand up and go, yep, that was us, we did the stupid, we're fixing it. You know, and this next bit is kind of more SaaS specific, but something related to this, that if you have your own software as a service, you will find very useful to do. Work out what the worst thing that can happen as a result of your app going down is, and try to mitigate it somehow, mitigate it in the build. Like what we've done, Convertory is a funnel builder. You know, usually if you're using a funnel or a page builder, normally when the app goes down, all your pages come down with it because they're all connected. Like this happens with ClickFunnels, it happens with Instapage. A few weeks ago, like Unbounce, every page on Unbounce got taken down for most of the day, which sucks quite a lot if you're running like a load of traffic to it at the time. That doesn't happen with Convertri, because we made sure that we mitigated it. You know, we built a separated publishing system, which means if the app goes down, and the app does go down sometimes, you know, anyone who tells you the software is not going to break is either an idiot or a liar. Like, so sometimes it will go down, but if it does, we make sure your pages stay live. They will still collect leads, they will still make sales. We're having a very bad day, but we've tried to mitigate the impact on you as much as possible. And because we've done that, that means, like, if the worst does happen, if something does break, the app comes down, we can say, like, okay, this stupid thing has happened, here's what you can do to fix it, but don't worry, because we're built like this, your pages are still there. Like, we can use that opportunity to keep selling them on why Convertri is good. And we can also do that, like, if one of the competition goes down. Like, if ClickFunnels drops, ClickFunnels pages go down, we can say to our users, you might have noticed that people on the dark side, they're having a bit of a problem. If that ever happens in Convertri, like, you'll be safe. So again, you just keep selling why you're good. And so those are the key parts of the context we try to create around ourselves for our customers. You know, we're open, we're transparent, we're honest. Most importantly, we're real people. You know, we're not perfect, but we are on their side. And because of that, they open our emails. Like, they buy what we recommend. They keep using Convertri and they keep paying for it, which, like, for us is the most important thing. I mean, none of this would help, though, if we didn't do one other thing, and that is actually deliver on the promises that are being made. You know, you can make wine of a certain quality, like you can make it taste expensive just by changing the price tag. But that's not going to work if you just fill the bottle with vinegar. You know, Transformers weren't the only toy using the playbook I was talking about, but they were the only ones where the toys were any good. You know, could actually do some of the stuff I watched them do. There was this other cartoon I used to watch a lot called Visionaries. I really liked that. They were like knights and they turned into animals. It was amazing. And I wanted those toys as well, because I bought into those characters. And finally, my parents relented, and I was bought one, and it was rubbish. It was absolutely rubbish. All you could do was move the arms. I couldn't turn it into a fox. What's the point of that? When I was bought a Transformers toy, like, it would actually transform. It would do the thing. It would do the thing I saw them doing on TV. And likewise, like, our customers aren't going to think we're working in their best interests if the software we produce doesn't work. Like, if the products we promote are consistently low quality, that will all go into your context as well. You know, that this stuff has a feedback loop. Like, if they like you, then they are going to be more patient, but that only goes so far. So to sum up this, if you want to get better retention rates, if you want to get better open rates, better click-throughs, better commissions, then you can absolutely do it by, like, working on delivering amazing content. You can do it by writing clever subject lines, but, like, copywriting is hard. But I think pretty much anyone can make sure their customers or their prospects have a good experience. I mean, if you can't do that, you are in the wrong room, and you know that. Like, anyone can be helpful, anyone can be a real person. Like, it's about the only thing everyone in here is good at. And if you build up this kind of context around yourself or your company, like change how your subscribers see you as part of their world, then I think you will find you'll need to worry far less about crafting the perfect email or writing a killer subject line. Like, your subscribers and customers will just, like, they will listen to you just because you're you. So change the copy if you want, but you may find it easier to change the world instead. We're done.
Thank you so much, Neil. I think that was so valuable. I think that's fascinating, that whole idea about, and I'm a copywriter myself, and I know that you stress and you think over every little thing, but if the context around you is changed, makes our life a lot easier. So I think that's fantastic. Have we got any questions for Neil? Elston?
Yeah, so building that context, surely it depends on, or it requires a lot of repetition, because you can say something once.
Oh yeah, you don't do this by saying stuff. You do it by doing stuff.
Okay, you show or you do once, twice, whatever. But
Yes.
how long does this process take, and to what extent do you
It
need
never
to
finishes.
Right. Okay.
Like, let's say we have the context of things like putting commissions to good use, they see the updates. We've got that context at the moment because they see us doing it. Maybe at some point we'll decide, like actually Convertri Sprint, like we've done everything useful we can do to it.
Right. So
At that point, then, like if we ever stop doing that, then that's going to hang around for a while because we've been doing it for a long time. But it's not going to hang around forever. So it's more about maintaining it.
So then that leads into another question, which is that for this to really work, you've got to be authentic, because
Yes.
you can't just write a story about yourself or your company that doesn't
Yeah,
that
you
doesn't
need
ring
to-
true.
You need to actually be doing it.
Right.
Like this isn't about like manipulating people into. Well, I guess it kind of is about manipulating people into thinking you're on their side, but you do it by actually being on their
On my
side.
side.
Great. Next. Come on, guys, you must be frantic with questions after that. My head's buzzing.
Yeah, okay.
You good?
Well, hold on.
Come on, Alston.
What's the stuff that people know about Andy and about you that you've applied into Convertri?
I have an amazing hand. Not even joking, people send me pictures. And again, that's being a bit more human. Like they know I am sarcastic and sometimes touchy in the group, but they also know I have impeccable dress sense. And that's like it's not a persona, it's just like being someone they can relate to. And it doesn't work for everyone, because like not everyone is going to like who I am, not everyone is going to like who you are. That's why that's why I like having lots of personalities there. So if they don't like me, then like maybe they'll think that's alright. Like that kind of thing. Like we have occasionally we get like an email in off one of the emails that Beth writes that's like, you know, I would like these a lot better if you just skipped all the stuff at the beginning and just told me what had changed. But this is outweighed by about 10 who are saying that reading these brightens their day and they like them. Yeah.
You're encouraging that genuine engagement. I mean, I'm in your Clubhouse group, and I love how everything's branded. You know, the Clubhouse. Even if you're not, if in hindsight you didn't think it was the wisest choice of name, but you know, the happiness thing really works because at least it's memorable and at least it's a personality. And I think it's something that stands out. When I think about going on, you know, into the Convertri group, I don't think of the Convertri group. I think of the Convertri Clubhouse. So you've created not just a context, you've created a whole brandable world around your brand, which stands out for me, and I think it's, you know, that's... my question would be, and I don't know if this is what anyone else would think as well, you've got proof that that has paid dividends in your retention, and, you know, in the development of your brand. Does it take more time? Does it take more effort than not doing so? Than not putting that effort in to be personable, to be, you know, to make sure you're trusted? Because I know that sounds weird, but people get into a world of copy and paste and, oh, let's do it like so-and-so did it because that was successful. And, you know, I don't know, I'm sure it's not true for the people here, but, you know, I'm aware that some people kind of just go, I'll do what's easiest, and I'll do what's quickest, and I'll do what someone else has done that's worked. But they don't take the time to create that for themselves, which is what you guys have done.
Well, I've got to be honest, like, this is... One of the reasons I did this was because it felt like, to me, it was the quickest and easiest way to do all of it, because as much as anything else, it's doing everything at once.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can work on writing amazing marketing emails that people really want to buy, despite the fact there's a pitch in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that, but personally, I think it's a lot of effort. And it also only works on marketing mails. You know, it's not going to also affect the retention rates. It's not also going to affect how they like react on the support desk when we're like, yeah, that's a bug. We're going to take a couple of weeks to fix that. Sorry, but like, as I say, that happens. And generally, if it does happen, people come back to us and go, yeah, no, that's cool. Like, I know you'll do it.
How nice would that be if ever all of your customers who you do get support tickets from or whatever, how nice would that be if you knew that they liked you, respected you, trusted you enough to know that regardless of what that issue is, that they know you're going to get it done and they're going to be there no matter what? It definitely, like you say, I think that's a lot less stressful way to work than to be
It's a lot
constantly
less stressful and it makes us support people's lives a lot easier as well, which is another bonus.
Very true. I think it's brilliant. Any more questions? No? Can we please give Neil a big massive round of applause? Neil's talks are absolutely infamous at Marketing Summit. I don't know if Simon mentioned before, but every single time that we're lucky enough that to have Neil speak, there's always things, slides that are memorable, and guaranteed people will come back the year after and go, oh, is Neil going to talk about diamond shreddies? Or is he going to talk about Kate Upton? Kate Upton's, she came back a few times because I think people like the photo he used, but yeah.
I'm aware of the target demographic here.
Like all good copywriters.